Oh, so you got the whole shirt, right? Like the whole damn thing, because that's what it's about. You know, this fresh new Rascal Apparel shirt at rascalapparel.com. What?
You get a discount code?
No. No. You know, fine. Use discount code Habibi for the next 72 hours for 10% off your entire order. You happy, bro? Just make sure you spell that shit. Habibi. People are like H-A-B-E-E-B-I. What the fuck, bro? It's not working. What's cracking, guys? Omar Yusuf here. You know I'm back with another video. This video, what have I filmed a lot of? Squat videos. Should I make another one? Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. Here's why. Because recently I went to the gym and I forgot all my gear. So I was a true paleo powerlifter. No knee sleeves, no belt, no weightlifting shoes. And if you guys know me, when it comes to my overall mobility, weightlifting shoes really help my squat. I do a high bar squat. What do weightlifting shoes do? Well, they decrease the amount of ankle dorsiflexion required in the squat to remain upright. So they're pretty important for me. And I thought to myself, shit, man, like I forgot all this stuff. I'm not gonna be able to do my workout. Guess what happened? I went in there, I did my mobility work, and Homer Surf Clam was able to squat effectively without using any equipment. And that's the video I want to make today, a full mobility routine for those that are trying to become more proficient at the squat. I'm going to assume you're either doing a high bar squat, a low bar squat. This is slightly geared more towards high bar squatters. But if you don't want to use any gear whatsoever, because I do feel like the belt does help with bracing, so that helps with bar position. I feel that shoes absolutely help with torso position, so how upright you are. If you don't have that, and maybe comment in the comment section below, do you have weightlifting shoes? Yes or no? If you don't, this is gonna be really relevant to you because I've whittled it down to basically my top 7 to 8 mobility exercises, as well as, you know, dynamic movements prior to initiating the squat that I think are the most bang for your buck. This is coming from someone, and we'll put up a clip of me from 2012 or maybe even before if we could find it, where my squat mechanics were just all off. And so thanks to some rigorous mobility work throughout years and years and years, I now have the best mobility of my life. I'm able to squat high bar with flat shoes, no problem whatsoever, and it honestly felt pretty good. So if you've been interested in changing your squat pattern, you're just like, fuck man, it looks dirty, I don't have that ankle dorsiflexion, or maybe my hips are just a little bit crusty when I squat, I always shift laterally. Try out this routine. It should really help you guys out. This is the summation of years of me experimenting with different mobility work. So try this out. Let me know in the comment section below if it worked for you, and like this video if you enjoy this content. All right, let's get started. There's a couple key areas. The first one we want to talk about is ankle mobility. Like I said before, weightlifting shoes, because they're elevated, they decrease our ankle dorsiflexion. There's a few different things that we can do to try and work on our ankle mobility. The first one would be to simulate what we do when we squat to try and get our knees past our toes. If you go to any level of depth, especially if you high bar squat, probably your knees will go past your toes, and that's fine. We want them to track properly over the toes, however. So we're going to take a stance that's approximately 2 feet apart. Our feet are going to be parallel, and keeping the back leg as straight as possible, we're going to shift that knee, the front knee, as far forward as we can in a dynamic motion that we go forward, and come back. We're going to do that for 10 repetitions, 3 sets per side. You'll feel a slight bit of stretch, but what you should try and do is move your knee further and further every single time you're doing this. So we want to warm up the ankle joint. Next, what we're going to do just a static stretch with a little bit of a twist. So we're going to bring our feet up against the wall. We're going to bring it up as high as possible. Then we're going to flex the quad in order to stretch the calves a little bit better. And we're going to lean into it. Just hold that position. Gradually over time, as you do 2 sets per side, holding it for at least 30 seconds, you're attempting to lean a little further in, once again increasing that range of motion. And then lastly, for the ankle area, we're just going to take a simple lacrosse ball or anything else. You don't need a lacrosse ball. This is actually a pretty equipment-free mobility routine. There's some sort of thing to mash up at the bottom of your feet, because for some people, their feet are all jacked up, especially when we take a look at how they walk. Their walking mechanics are all messed up. So get a ball, lacrosse ball, put it underneath your foot, roll underneath there, so that when you squat, you can really spread the floor and feel the floor as you're squatting. So those are the 3 that we start when it comes to the ankles. Moving up, we want to now talk about the hips. The hips need to be unlocked. If you walk for any length of time, if you sit down, if you're not doing dynamic sport-like activities, your hips probably get tight. So what we want to do first, we want to focus on opening up the hip flexors. So we're going to do a standard stretch, except instead of leaning far into where a lot of people will do that, they're like, oh man, I feel a great stretch. I'm like, no, that's actually just, you know, your hip bone grinding right into your acetabulum as you lean forward. You want to squeeze the glutes instead, remain upright. You can actually lift that one arm, the one hand over that you're leaning into to feel a greater stretch along your oblique area. And you just want to feel it in your hip flexors. So don't exaggerate by leaning too far forward. Instead, make sure your pelvis, your glutes are squeezed. Make sure it's high enough, whatever, let's say, height that you choose, so that you're at approximately 90 degrees, the foot that's down, the side that's down. Squeeze and hold. Again, you're going to do 30 seconds per side, 2 quick rounds of that. So that's hip flexors. Then an area that gets tight for a lot of people is just outside of where people tend to think. So they think, oh, like right above the knee, I got to stretch that out. We want to now move towards the outside, so we're almost moving towards the top of where the glute starts. And what you'll tend to find, we're gonna hold the position where we're sitting down, we're gonna take a kettlebell or anything, it could be a 25-pound plate at your gym, and you're gonna try and find a tender area right there. It should be below the hip bone, and what you'll feel, it might feel tighter than other areas, you wanna just hold some sort of weight on there to try and release that point. This has helped me out tremendously, especially when it comes to opening up my hips when I squat. When you squat, you want to keep the hips open so you can squat down with your torso upright in between those legs. So we're gradually working on opening up the hips. After that, we want to move on then to the glutes proper. We want to do some glute bridges. So we're just going to go for reps here. We're going to do about 20 reps, making sure that our feet are a little bit wider than the shoulder width apart, slightly pointed out. We tilt the pelvis up, squeeze hard with the glutes, hold for a brief second, go back down. Just do 2 rounds of that. We want to make sure, and a lot of people, again, when we talk about hip extensors, your glutes are the big bad boys that are responsible for your squats. You want to make sure you know what's going on, you know how to feel them. When you initiate a squat in any event, you should be starting with the core brace, slightly squeeze your glutes just to make sure that they're even so they're not tilted backwards, and then you begin a squat. So glutes are very important. Lastly, we're moving on to a few different things. We're going to talk about the core. If we work on a plank, so a simple plank, holding it for 45 seconds, 2 rounds, this whole routine is probably going to take you 10 to 15 minutes from the start to the end. If you hold a plank, what it's going to help do, it's going to alleviate any potential back tension. Because if you think, if your body believes, oh, you know what, my back's in a precarious position, it doesn't feel very healthy, it'll tend to lock itself up. I'm not saying that you're in pain or you have an injury, but preemptively, your body will be like, oh, you know what, let's take this back, let's protect it, let's make it tighter so you don't end up using it. A plank will help fix that by focusing on proper bracing, so just make sure your glutes again are squeezed, quads are squeezed, total body tension, 2 sets of 45 seconds, and then lastly, when we're talking about the core, we do want to work on a little bit of internal hip rotation, and that will come via the obliques. So you want to take a side plank position. You want to hold that for 30 seconds per side and do 2 rounds as well. And you'll really tend to notice once you've done all these things, the mechanics of the hips relative to the ankle, everything when you squat will feel a lot better. And then lastly, for some people out there, if you're doing a high bar squat, not as relevant, but I'm assuming some people do the low bar squat, obviously. You want to do something for external rotation of the shoulder. Remember, if you can't properly rotate your shoulder, what will end up happening, we'll arch with our back instead. That's just a bad position where we're loading so much weight on our spine in a suboptimal position. So just think, rotate with the shoulder itself. When you get the pull, hold it on something where you could rotate it down to get that external rotation, and just hold that position for about 20 to 30 seconds, 2 times per side, and that's all you need to do when it comes to squat mobility. We assessed everything. We went from the top, so we went from shoulder all the way down to the ankle. We did everything I think that is truly relevant to develop a beautiful, proficient squat that's safe for everyone to do. Try out this routine. This comes from years and years of experience, me experimenting on myself to find out what's optimal, because I did not start out with good mobility. In fact, I do have some crusty ass hips. So if it worked for me and now I'm able to squat just in flats, high bar position with good form, you can too. Try this out. That's all I really got to say. That's all the time we have. Check out Rascal Apparel. We just launched a whole bunch of new shirts. Use discount code Habibi at checkout for 10% off for the next 72 hours. If you like the video, like the damn video, I'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next one. Peace.